Because the one thing about short-term rentals people don't realize is it's not just about sticking it on the rental market like you do a long-term.
You're running a hotel, man.
You're running a hotel.
The realization I had early on.
Totally.
Like, you got to manage the pricing. You got to get in and out with guests. You got to get the cleaning. You got to handle all these different pieces. And people use and abuse your property like it is maybe a hotel to a certain degree. So COVID was a big catalyst.
Absolutely.
A lot of people were able to now move from those higher earning areas into San Diego because it's a beautiful, amazing place to live.
Yes.
And ended up jacking up the real estate market a little bit here.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, that being able to work remotely and employees being provided with that flexibility gave them more opportunity to move where they wanted to move. And I love LA. I love different cities. San Francisco is a great city, but I think as all things considered, San Diego is probably one of the most desirable places, if not the most desirable place to live in the country.
Absolutely.
And when you find those cities and those areas where they are so desirable to live in, it's really hard to find a good cap rate and to find good return because the prices in comparison to the long-term rents really just, they don't line up. So I think in order to get a property to make sense at all, the numbers to make sense here at all, especially with the interest rates right now, you really want to be looking to do some sort of value add.
So what are you seeing as far as cap rates and then opportunities within the San Diego market and maybe even just the broader real estate market in general? All right, brother.
What's going on, bud?
How we doing? We got here Monroe Herington.
How's it going, everyone?
My friend and also real estate agent that helped me to acquire this property that we're in now, which is my primary residence, along with my short-term rental here in Mission Beach, San Diego. And we also got a special guest here, Bubba Blue, who wanted to join, but now he's thinking he may run away.
The dog.
It was short-lived with him.
Escrow.
Yeah, exactly. He's out. He didn't like the inspection period.
Yeah.
Back in.
He's back.
So anyway, we got my buddy here. We're going to talk about just overall real estate market. I think in particular the San Diego market that you're entrenched in. This Mission Beach area that we're in is really a specialty of yours. So maybe just provide a little bit of background about yourself, your company, what you've been up to these days.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Adam. So I've been in the business about 10 years now, or actually 10 years this month. So it's pretty exciting coming up on that 10-year anniversary.
Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you, buddy. Yeah, so I've been in San Diego about 8 years out of that. Was in Lake Tahoe for a couple years prior. So very used to resort markets and luxury markets. What brought me down to San Diego was obviously just San Diego and the lifestyle it provided.
Sure.
And, whereas some people may not say San Diego is a cash flowing market, there's certainly ways to make it work. And I wanted to find a way to make it work. I wanted to move to a market that's a A+ market, has this lifestyle, and be able to, invest, live, and thrive in an area like this.
Hell yeah, man. More power to you. I think anybody here in San Diego would say the same, and just finding a market, an area, a place to live, and even though it's expensive here, making a living and making it happen and really thriving with it. So
100%.
Congratulations, my man.
Yeah. So, fortunately in my 8 years down here, I've been able to do about $250 million in sales, mostly residential, luxury, as well as multi-unit sales, up to 4 units, although we have done some commercial residential as well. Just sold a 10 unit building here in Pacific Beach, which is super exciting.
Nice.
Where my client's actually going to take that, remodel all the units and get them all ready to short-term rent. They're all studio units, so he's going to have 10 short-term rentals, Airbnbs, and going to take the cash flow from what it was and probably 5x that at least.
Wow,
pretty exciting.
That is.
Yeah,
that's
kind of like what you did here, right?
Yeah, man. We were just joking and laughing about, as we were going through these walkthroughs, that how much this property has been renovated. I changed so much of it, but when we went through that walkthrough, what we saw, I mean, you can talk through that a little bit of just how they showed the property was really not good, how they didn't take care of the property, everything like that.
Yeah, definitely a lot of deferred maintenance. And I think that, even that being said, though, there's so many things that they could have done to get the property to show a lot better than it did. Even if you take a property that needs some work and needs some TLC, but you do, maybe clean it and and stage it, that those are all good things and can make the difference of a property selling, in 10% more. Sometimes we see as much as 15% by cleaning it up and staging it. Paint's really cheap. So I know you did a lot of work to the property, but even when you just painted the exterior, how much value that added to the property and the overall appearance and the curb appeal of the property, right? And you've done a fantastic job with, turning this place around and cash flow.
Thank you.
Right? So you're cash flowing even in the higher interest rate market. You still found a way to get the numbers to work, which is pretty exciting.
Absolutely. When we walked the property, there was still a beer pong table on the roof.
Yeah.
There was a box bed, a bed made of boxes, meaning they just threw a sheet over a bunch of boxes.
Yeah, not a box spring.
Yeah.
But an actual box bed.
Yeah, I'd never seen that before. I mean,
that was the first.
You're selling $3 million worth of real estate. You'd think that maybe you throw in a bed, like a real bed in there.
Or just get rid of the boxes. And just keep the room empty.
Any of the above is better than what we saw.
Right. Yeah.
But that being said, then I bought it. So it was a sucker, right?
Well, but for good reason, because if you would have bought this property after you did all the work, you would have been paying a much higher premium, right? So
absolutely.
You're obviously looking for those deals that don't show as well and may need some work. That's how you, create value and value add properties, and you did a great job with that. So
absolutely.
That was actually how I fell into the market here in Mission Beach, not specifically value add, but when we're coming back to a standpoint of cash flow, I noticed that a lot of smart younger individuals such as yourself, you moved down from the Bay Area, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people coming down from the Bay Area and guys up there are typically pretty intelligent. They know how to analyze things and deals and numbers. And I noticed so much young money was coming down from the Bay Area purchasing properties here, partially because of the lifestyle that it provides. But when you're able to purchase in this market in short-term rent, you're pretty much doubling that cap rate is what you would be doing as a long-term, right? So long-term San Diego cap rate, probably 3.5% for a long-term tenant. I think it's safe to say.
Yeah.
And when you do short-term rental, you're looking maybe 6 to 7% if you do it correctly. So it's kind of really the only way that I've found to get numbers to work. And, it's been a journey over the course of the past few years. And even as far as starting our own short-term rental management company now, which is really exciting. So, being able to provide people with the value they deserve. Because the one thing about short-term rentals people don't realize is it's not just about sticking it on the rental market like you do a long-term.
You're running a hotel, man.
You're running a hotel.
The realization I had early on.
Totally.
You got to manage the pricing. You got to get in and out with guests. You got to get the cleaning. You got to handle all these different pieces. And people use and abuse your property like it is maybe a hotel to a certain degree. So, yeah. And then going back to your point about cap rates, that doesn't even count for appreciation that you're seeing here in San Diego. It was undervalued for a long time because the jobs haven't necessarily been here that you would see in a Bay Area or LA, New York. Those sort of things have higher paying jobs and supports the real estate market. Here, there's not as many higher paying jobs. There is tech starting to move in that is supporting that economy, but COVID was a big catalyst. A lot of people were able to now move from those higher earning areas into San Diego because it's a beautiful, amazing place to live.
Yes.
And ended up jacking up the real estate market a little bit here.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, that being able to work remotely and employees being provided with that flexibility gave them more opportunity to move where they wanted to move. And I love LA. I love different cities. San Francisco is a great city, but I think as all things considered, San Diego is probably one of the most desirable places, if not the most desirable place to live in the country.
Absolutely.
And when you find those cities and those areas where they are so desirable to live in, it's really hard to find a good cap rate and to find good return because the prices in comparison to the long-term rents really just, they don't line up. So I think in order to get a property to make sense at all, the numbers to make sense here at all, especially with the interest rates right now, you really want to be looking to do some sort of value add, getting it like you did, maybe looking out for those listings that aren't showing as nice or not as turnkey, coming in, doing the work, sweat equity, putting the money into the property, getting it rent, and then I've got a couple buildings right now listed where my client purchased them for about $2 million each. They're listed right now down on San Fernando Place, and he purchased these buildings for $2 million each in early 2020, late 2019, and now we're on the market at $3,950 each, or you can buy both buildings for $7,450 for all four. But he purchased them for $4 million total. Right. So by getting those tenants, out of there, negotiating cash for keys and doing your, substantial remodel as he did on the properties, involving, some permits, gets them remodeled, gets them rented, gets the cap rate way up to about a 6.5, has 2 years of proving that income. Now the property's worth a lot more. So there's a lot of ways you can do value add. That's by physically remodeling the property, but also getting those numbers up and showing that the property will perform to an investor. So
absolutely.
And you're just not going to see that type of jump in equity in other markets that maybe cash flow a little bit better, in Alabama or wherever people go for the cash flowing markets. You may or may not. I don't know. You guys, you probably speak to that better than I do, because you guys do a lot of value add stuff, multi-unit.
We do. Yeah. Midwest has been bread and butter to us. And for different reasons, it, lower barrier of entry, cash flow, longer term holds. Not necessarily that this wouldn't be a longer term hold, but usually it ended up being multifamily, single family, where we're doing long term renting. We're not doing short term rent. So the cash flow is great, but this market is amazing as well. I love the San Diego market.
A lot less of a headache when you can get long-term tenants in there as well, right?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Maybe the tenancy laws are a little bit more in your favor in that area.
Also true. 100%. Big benefit for sure.
Yeah, I guess I'm biased. I've been so focused, single point of focus on the market here in San Diego. I found a way to.
It's a wonderful market, man. It really is
good to diversify. So I think what you're doing is awesome.
So what are you seeing as far as cap rates and then opportunities within the San Diego market, and maybe even just the broader real estate market in general?
So as far as cap rates are concerned, like I was saying previously, we're sitting right around that 3.5% cap rate, which isn't as appealing. I'd be interested to hear your cap rates you're probably doing in the Midwest are probably that closer to 10, I would imagine.
Yeah, we pick up everything. Everything needs some love that we pick up. And nothing is just sort of like let it just sit there and everything's pretty hands off.
Right.
We always put forced appreciation into everything that we do. But we always look at analyzing properties that we like to get to a stabilized asset above a 10 cap. So everything ends up being a 10 cap once it's stabilized. So some of the initial financials could be atrocious, right? And with that, we end up analyzing what it can be. So it's the pro forma of that overall asset. So the initial financials are important to us, but even more important is what we can do with the property. There are many god-awful operators out there, and some people are maybe on the retirement side ready to get out of some of these properties, so we'll pick it up from them and then go and run it as a business and put in our systems, our processes to drive down expenses, increase rents, same thing. Or it could be somebody that's just not paying attention to the property anymore for whatever reason. Maybe they got too stretched, too thin, and in the end, value opportunity for sure.
And I think it's always good an idea to just, no matter what market you're looking in, you obviously look in multiple markets. You look in San Diego, you look in certain markets in the Midwest. It's just always keeping an eye on what the market is currently doing and where the opportunities lie within that market. And right now, I think, we can both agree seller financing is huge, especially when you get in larger multi-unit space. That's one of the best things that you can leverage. And people are even starting to leverage that more in the single family market now. It's starting to come over, and there's more creative investment ideas. And so I think, if you keep your eyes peeled, you study the market, and you know exactly, what it is that, not necessarily what it is you're looking for, but something that fits your overall parameters, whether that's value add, whether that's a long-term hold, property on the waterfront that's going to appreciate at a higher rate.
Sure.
Right. There's all different opportunities, but I think it's good to kind of find what really works for you, create your model and kind of work within that framework is always best. That's the people that I've seen become most successful is they have their model and they rinse and repeat that model.
Absolutely. So the short-term rental, you touched on that here in San Diego, and just in general, regulations are starting to compress the short-term rental market. How are you navigating that specific to San Diego? So those that aren't familiar to San Diego, there was a law enacted, I guess this past year is when it went into effect, that limited short-term rental. Total number of licenses in all of San Diego, I think, is 1% of overall housing. And then 30% of overall housing here in Mission Beach could have a short-term rental license.
Right.
And then individuals can only have one license to their name. So it starts to really restrict people based on those parameters of buying a bunch of short-term rentals, building a whole portfolio, running that as the management system. So how have you, one, I guess, sort of navigated those rough waters? And then two, what do you see as the future opportunities with that if that's kind of what's the regulation? I mean, here in Mission Beach, there's no licenses left, right?
Right. Well, yes and no. So there's no tier 4. So basically there's 4 tiers of permitting, right?
Yeah.
Tier 1, 2, 3, and 4. Tier 4 is specific to Mission Beach. Tier 3 and 4 act the same as far as the regulation. Tier 3 caters to all the city of San Diego, the cities of San Diego, not including Mission Beach.
Yeah.
So Mission Beach got the separate carve out. That's Tier 4. All the Tier 4 licenses are taken. As of right now, there's talk of them potentially releasing more in the future, but as of right now, they're all taken. There's probably about 130 people on the wait list, not more. So correct, you couldn't just come in and get your Tier 4 short-term rental permit. Now what you can do is utilize Tier 2 permitting, and that means that the host lives on site 270 days out of the year. So that can work really good for duplexes, or perhaps you have a single family home that you can create a studio out of the downstairs bedroom pretty easily. You can add an ADU. Or like I said, with duplexes or multi-unit properties, as long as the host is living on site. Now, the host doesn't necessarily need to be the owner either. The host can be a tenant. And the host doesn't necessarily need to be the one getting the income from the short-term rental either.
That's interesting.
And I have emailed and spoke with a lot of people at the city to verify this. So it's really important understanding, if you're going to get into short-term rentals, the intricacies of the laws and the ordinances.
Yeah.
So you take a 3-unit property, for example, down here, you rent out one of the units as a long-term rental. And then each one of those tenants, say there's 2 tenants in there, each one of those tenants gets a Tier 2 permit in their name because they're living on that site, on that property for 270 days out of the year.
Yeah.
And they each have a permit to represent, say, Unit 2, and the other one has represent Unit 3.
Got it.
As the placeholder for the host.
That's
so there are ways that you can, work with the ordinance. I think the city is just trying really hard to, create more housing for, locals who live here full time.
They felt like they had to do something, right? Like, you don't want a bunch of corporations coming in and buying up all the housing and then leaving it to dry for the other people.
Right.
Mission Beach has always been a vacation rental spot, though. So, like, to restrict it to 30%, or there's more licenses that people want, to me, felt unneeded.
Yeah, I don't know how well it was thought through.
Yeah.
But neither here nor there. It is what it is. And all across California, people are being restricted. I mean, where you're from, up in the Bay Area, I know that, like San Francisco, for example, I don't think you can do short-term rentals there, right? Or there's certain restrictions in certain areas. That market is not my specialty. But even if you go down to Coronado here in San Diego, 30-day minimum, right? And local governments, I think it was Newsom or California legislation, cannot. Certain HOAs were restricting, saying, "Hey, 12-month minimum." Here, 12-month lease minimum in our HOA. New regulations say that they can only restrict 30 days. So 30 days is the maximum amount that a homeowner association can restrict a owner to rent their place, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
And I don't know, maybe there's certain communities that, do hold fast to that. I'm not 100% sure, but with the new legislation, you can for sure do a 30-day rental model. And that's most you can be restricted. So that brings there's three rental models, right? You have short-term, midterm, and long-term.
Yeah.
Long-term, anything over 12 months or longer. Short-term, anything under 30 days. Midterm, really 30 days or more, but less than a year.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that model is kind of taking off right now as well.
Yeah, I've seen that. You get the traveling nurses,
Exactly.
that sort of style, corporate housing, anything in that realm, which there's a market for that as well, right?
Yeah. So those are the two websites, Furnish Finder and chbo.com, corporatehousingbyowner.com. So yeah, there's a market for that. For my, just as a rule of thumb, if you're looking at long-term rents, midterm rents, and short-term rents, you're typically increasing the rent from a long-term to a midterm by about 50%.
Yeah.
And a short-term, you're doubling it. So you're able to produce twice as much revenue with the short-term rental than a long-term rental.
At least twice,
At least twice,
yeah,
at least twice. And you have more upside there, right?
Yeah.
Depending on how you're managing it, how creative you're getting, what amenities you're offering, there's more flexibility within that.
So maybe touch on how you're finding some of the deals. Obviously finding a good deal is important. So maybe just talk through the different avenues that you use.
Yeah, so, obviously plenty of different ways to find deals. It depends on what class you're looking in. If you're looking at multi-unit deals, you're obviously looking for, price per door and looking to find, a reasonable rate in that regard. Also, if you're, again, looking at listings that are kind of dilapidated, right? Properties that are a little bit dilapidated, need some work. So always just scanning through the photos, seeing if there's any mistakes. I for example, we just closed on a 3-unit down in the sports arena area where there's 2 separate properties, a duplex on one property, single family on the other. And the listing agent had a duplex listed, and in the remarks, the property was listed as a 2-unit property. And in the remarks said, the adjacent property at such and such address is also part of this deal.
Okay.
So, in that way, the property was sitting on the market for a while, because the market is viewing, buyers are looking at this property almost as a duplex, because that's the way it's more or less listed, unless you really got in there and started reading through the description. So
sure.
One of my good buddies actually is, funny enough, Devin, who did the work on your property.
Yep.
One of my closest friends, and
he's been on this podcast as well.
Yeah. There you go. So he was actually the buyer of that property, and we just went in there and basically, I think we ended up securing that deal for 1.2 for 3 units on 2 separate APNs, right? So he's going to fix up those units. He might even sell the single family house or sell the duplex. And that's essentially, he's going to wind up out of the deal with a property for free. Essentially he's got to put all the work and do everything. Sure. But, so I think just looking for mistakes on listings and just really picking a marketplace, right? If you're trying to look at listings all across an entire county, that can be challenging. But if you really, really get to know a market, you'll start to familiarize yourself. You'll see a single family home pop up for maybe 1.5 or under 1,000 square foot. And you're like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder what's going on with this one. So that's a way to, look for deals that are on the market, but obviously your off market deals are going to be a good resource as well. So
yeah,
kind of the old school methods, calling, mailing, and door knocking, trying to find sellers who are willing to sell at a discounted rate and don't want the hassle of putting their property on the market.
Yeah.
That's where you're going to really hit those home runs. As if a property does get listed and it's listed correctly, at least, it's probably going to get flooded with offers, because there's so many people out there right now looking to buy.
Yeah. Interesting. So you're doing mailers, you're doing phone calls, you're doing all of that.
Do it all.
Obviously MLS is
Yeah.
the standard opportunity of finding.
So I'm more on the retail side, right?
Yeah.
I'm a real estate agent.
Sure.
So my mailers and stuff are more so catered to those that are looking to sell their properties, or purchase property as well, but really looking for listings, right? So coming at it from that perspective rather than an investor might be, we'll buy your house fast, et cetera. And that's what a lot of people do.
Yeah.
But they do kind of somewhat go hand in hand, right? Because if I am able to find a property, or a seller says, oh yeah, I'll take a really reasonable rate, maybe I'll call someone such as yourself, partner up on a deal, or, try to raise some money, or just purchase it myself if I don't have clients that it'll work for,
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I think a lot of people overthink it. The old school methods still definitely, I've found, are the most effective. Getting referrals, networking, making calls, and just being out there in the community.
Yeah.
And becoming a name and developing a reputation that people in the community can trust.
What's your take on the interest rate environment that we're in today? It's currently October 2023 right now.
Yeah.
Feds are talking about raising rates again. We're sitting at over 7% if you're going to get a primary mortgage. What's your take on whether to jump in the real estate market now, hold off? What's your opinion?
Yeah, I think there's deals to be found in every market, right? And again, every market is going to have its challenges, right? If we flash back to, say, 18 months ago, in the beginning of 2022, I mean, you as soon as a property hits the market, it seems like it's already got 8 offers on it, right? And the prices are getting bid up. Sure, interest rates are really low, and that's what's causing that demand, right?
Sure.
So that was a challenge for a lot of buyers, just even trying to get an offer accepted. Sometimes we'd come in $50K over asking, and people were still missing out on these properties. Sometimes $100K over asking, right?
Yeah.
Fortunately, I had a pretty good success rate in getting my clients' offers accepted. So, picking a right agent to work with that knows how to navigate that and communicate with the other agent. I think there was one deal we resubmitted the offer 4 or 5 times, before we even got a response from the seller.
Wow.
Because I'm blowing up her phone like, hey, where are we at right now? Where are the other offers coming in? All right, we're going to resubmit. So those are some challenges we were facing previously. Now, obviously, the interest rate environment has caused that demand to fall a lot. That being said, supply has also dropped from that time last year where there was maybe 5,500 listings on the market in San Diego County. Now we're looking at closer to 4,400. So you've seen a significant drop in inventory, which is already low, right? Just to get some perspective, I mean, if we're going back to 2018 or prior to COVID, we might be looking at 12, 14, 15,000 listings on the market.
Wow.
And so just to give you some perspective, there's so much less inventory now, and so that's causing prices to stay up and even continue to go up. We're neck and neck where we were as far as median prices are, where we were at in the peak at the beginning of last year.
Interesting.
Which is very interesting, right?
Yeah.
It is very interesting. Now we're coming in the winter months. I expect prices to soften. I've been seeing more price reductions. But that's just a natural ebb and flow of the seasons of the market, right? Spring, summer come around, prices tend to peak. The market has normalized in that regard. So, what I would advise to someone that's looking to get in the market is obviously look for a good deal, know what you're looking for. Find a product, a property that you believe in. Like me personally, I'm not out there, really seeking and searching to buy, 1-bedroom condos or studios, although there are sometimes good opportunities even within that. I'm looking for, detached properties, typically, multi-unit or single family, as opposed to a townhome condo, but that's just my perspective. Now, if I could only afford a condo, would I buy a condo? Yeah, probably, so that I can start building equity and roll that later into a detached home, because you got to start somewhere.
Sure.
So it's still better than nothing. But yeah, I'm a firm believer in properties that you can kind of add value to and that are going to appreciate at a greater rate, which are typically the single family and the multi-unit.
To me, being in this interest rate environment, if it's a rental, for instance, primary is kind of a different story, but a similar context. But from a rental perspective, if you can at least break even in this interest environment. At some point interest rates are going to drop.
Yep.
So to me, at least, if I'm covering mortgage expenses, everything, I'm good. That's kind of my approach right now in real estate investing. I know that I'm picking it up at a discounted price, because if it was a year ago where interest rates, maybe a year and a half ago now, interest rates had already started to jack up a year ago now, but there would be 20 different offers, and as you mentioned, would be $100K over asking price, because money was a lot cheaper. Now, based on monthly cash flow, you can't afford that same amount. So I think people have started to recede and get a little scared, and to me that's really opened up opportunities for other people that are willing to take some of those, I don't want to say gambles, but just educated assessments of a rental market, and saying, hey, I know this is going to go up at some point. I know that the minute that things decrease from an interest rate perspective is going to be a flood and an explosion. There's so much pent up demand, in my opinion, that people are just waiting on the sidelines, like, I'll just wait for interest rates. It's like, I think now is a great opportunity if you can afford it, and know that you're going to be in a higher interest rate, and then refi in a few years. So you look at that calculation, what am I paying additional from an higher interest rate in comparison to a higher purchase price? Thinking about it from that perspective and that lens, and maybe you got $100K price reduction now in this interest rate environment, but you'll pay an extra $30K in interest over the next few years. You'll take that all day, right?
Yeah, I always say, you marry the price and you date the rate.
Sure. Yeah.
So, you can always refinance at a later rate. But I do think it's also important for people not to jump into a deal with the idea that they're just going to be able to refinance down the road, and then that's going to, then everything will be okay. You want to make sure, like you said, that you can afford it.
Yeah.
And hopefully break even. I mean, if you can break even on a deal right now with interest rates being where they're at, I think it's a slam dunk. Yeah. Because chances are down the road, interest rates will come down. But let's say worst case scenario, they don't. Then at least, you're in an investment where it's not draining you monthly. And over the course of time, that property is going to appreciate. I mean, that's a fact, right? It is going to go up in value over the course of time. I think real estate is probably the safest asset class to park money, as opposed to, stock market, crypto, obviously. I mean, I think if you can park money in real estate and you can look out at a, 7+ year horizon, you're going to win, right? I mean, even if you bought at the worst time before the crash in 2008, right? I always use this example. Say you bought in 2007, just 10 years later, you're already probably breaking even to where you were. And that was the worst economic crash that we've ever experienced in our lifetime. Hopefully we ever experience in our lifetime. But even then, if you just hold on to that property for 10 years or a little bit longer, like you're going to be good. You bought at that time and you still own that property, you're doing exceptionally well, and that property value has at least doubled.
Yeah.
So it's like, if not tripled. So I think, you got to look at any investment at a long-term horizon. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. That's where value add comes in so handy, right? Is because you can purchase a property, say for $1 million, put a couple $100,000 into it or $100,000 into it, and then it's worth 1.5. So that's a way to really get that, force that equity fast, and that's something that's within your control. And that shelters you from market correction, right? If you're able to put that value add in the property, okay, then if the market corrects by 20%, well, at least you force the equity by 20%, so you're still breaking even on the market.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
It's a good way to insulate yourself.
So what do you look for in investors when they're looking for you and you're looking for them?
Yeah, a lot of the investors that I work with are more buy and hold investors. I get probably 5 messages a day between emails and texts, literally at least 5 a day. People, contacting me, hey, do you have any off-market fixer deals? These are people that I don't know. Yeah. And so I don't personally work with as many of those. I work with more buy and hold. So But from that perspective, I just want someone who's serious. If I spend all the time finding them the deal that they're going to pull the trigger, someone who knows what they're looking for, really knows what they're looking for. When people say, "Oh, I'm just looking for a good deal," well, chances are if I go find and bring them a good deal, they're not going to jump on it, So finding investors that really know what they're looking for. If they have experience, that's always helpful too. Knowing that they have a track record. But it just depends on, where you're at in your business as a real estate agent. I mean, if you're brand new and a guy, comes in, he says like, maybe that's a good exercise for you.
Sure. Yeah.
As you spend more time in the business, you want to work with people that are going to close. People that are qualified. If people are like, get all uptight when you start asking them, certain qualification questions, that's probably a good telltale sign that they're maybe not as qualified as they're making it out to be.
Yeah.
And what I'm looking, I think investors should work with specifically local agents. If an investor comes to me and says, "Hey, I'm looking for a product in Mission Beach, a multi-unit or, a waterfront property," that's so specific to where I know I can go out, find that, bring it back to them, even potentially off market, because I know exactly what I'm looking for, right? So I think getting specific with your search criteria is always helpful for an agent.
Yeah.
So they know what to go, like help them help you.
Absolutely. I think first-time home buyers are notorious for not really understanding which direction they want to go. Investors maybe are a little easier because there's less emotion to it.
Right.
Right. It's, hey, what's the numbers look like?
Totally.
Different different sides of the coin for sure, but you've had success with both of those parties. So
of course,
sometimes you just need a little hand holding out of the primary residence.
Yeah, some of the best buyers are also first-time home buyers, especially like veterans or VA buyers that are in the military. I mean, they tend to follow instruction and are very good to work with. So I think it's also like talking with them and taking them down the line of questions, like how many beds do you need? Finding out what they need and having that conversation with them. Sometimes you can work with them to help them find that.
Sure.
And that, I guess that holds true with investors as well, right? Really, and it depends on the investor. An investor can be someone that's just looking to invest their money, might not have a ton of experience in real estate, or it could be someone that's done this a bunch of times.
Absolutely.
Right? So I think really what it boils down to is seriousness and commitment to the process. Like, are they actually gonna buy?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Well, we always like to end with, what are your key takeaways from the episode, man? Anything that you want to kind of drive home to the audience here?
Yeah, just to summarize it, I think that there's different opportunities for rentals, kind of coming back to that midterm, short-term, long-term model, like kind of finding a model that works for you, that you like, as well as, just looking at investment class, like what is it that really makes you tick? Is it waterfront property? Is it single family property? Is it a multi-unit property? So really just dialing in that search criteria of, from my perspective as an investor, multi-unit's always going to cash flow the best. And if you are going to jump into something like a short-term rental, just make sure you connect with an agent who knows the market, who's experienced and can, give you the proper information as far as the local ordinances are concerned.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. Always ever changing, and some guidance there is always valuable. You can 100%. Read through the document 100 times, but sometimes there's some nuances that you missed, or maybe there's some avenues, a way to work around that
totally.
That the city has already communicated to be okay, right? Like 100%. We were talking about posting and things like that.
Yeah, with the tier 2 and just different ways you can go about it. It's always important to dissect the small deals. But yeah, if you are getting in that game, it's not as straightforward as long-term rents. So you want to make sure that you're, being attentive. And I think you've done a great job with this property in doing so.
Thank you, brother. Yeah. Appreciate it, my man.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for being on.
All right, my man.
Thank you. Hell yeah.